So I'm back off holiday. I'm very ill. Yesterday I was awake for almost 24 hours straight, and yet here I am, making a video about Valorant because a lot of news has happened whilst I was away. Speaking of big news, this is your last chance. This is your last chance to join the Gosu Academy bootcamp. And you can now get a 25% discount if you use the code TMV at checkout. That is TMV. Can you spell that? TMV. And here are some reasons of why you need to join this bootcamp. This bootcamp is being headlined by one of the best coaches in the world, Neil Zenio of Team Heretics. And he's doing 4 classes covering topics that no coach of that caliber has ever covered publicly. You'll get to attend 10 live classes that you'll get lifetime access to, as well as the opportunity to play and coach 10-mans and play with players just as serious about improving as you. And Gosu have a money back guarantee, so if you're not really liking it or feeling it after the first 3 sessions, you can just say it's not for me and get your money back. So this is your last chance to join the Gosu Academy bootcamp. Use the code TMV to get a 25% discount and go and join, and I'll be there waiting for you in one of the classes as well. But with that said, let's dive into some of this news because some of it's quite interesting, like this. Chet Singh violated Riot Games' global esports code of conduct for broadcasting VODs whose access was contingent on current status as head coach of a VCT team. His access to the content was unauthorized, and its distribution on July 31st, 2024 constituted a breach of proprietary information. He did not secure permission from Riot Games, NRG, and the other teams involved prior to broadcasting publicly inaccessible VODs and communications to his personal channels. Consequently, Chet is suspended effective immediately and continuing through the end of Masters Bangkok. Now, of course, many of you will know Chet as the head coach of, old NRG, and then before that, old Optic, of course, and has been a prominent figure, I would say, in the Valorant scene. So obviously this came as a bit of a surprise, and there are a couple of things in here that I know a lot of people were, kind of like, really? I mean, the first thing is this happened on July 31st, 2024. Now this happened, a couple of days ago on October 14th at this point, but I mean, this, it was a long time to make this decision, which you would think like, oh, as soon as Riot saw this stream, it's like, well, he probably didn't have the rights to do that. So, you would think that this would be a quicker decision than this, but for whatever reason, it took them this long, and now Chet is suspended. And I know that some of you will be thinking, like, is this bad? Is this worthy of a suspension? And that's a good question. Basically just streaming VODs with the actual team comms in there. Of course, the teams will probably mostly change, that were part of these VODs and whatever. So, does it really matter that much? And honestly, really, probably not. I don't think it's going to inherently give you a crazy advantage. However, in this situation, there is a possibility that if someone did this, obviously, like during the season, right, that would have a big impact. And I think that is kind of where Chet is getting banged in a way, is that I think he's being made a bit of an example of here, by, having a suspension for basically the first part of the season. You broke the rules that were in the rule book. And so, this is kind of like a warning to everyone else, like, don't do this, right? Like, you don't do this. Now, Chet also said this, bro, I can't even watch party or go to the Americas arena. It seems like I committed a federal crime. And again, stuff like this probably feels like it's harsh in some way, right? Like, why can't you watch party the games? But to me, again, this makes sense. When someone is suspended, right, like, they shouldn't be allowed to do those things. That, to me, seems pretty clear and obvious, and if you took this to, let's say someone was just actively cheating in a game, right, like they turned their hacks on essentially and got suspended, you wouldn't want them then watch partying the game, right? You wouldn't want them being a part of kind of the ecosystem of the esport. So I do understand this, even though, again, it feels kind of excessive and harsh. The blanket rule should probably be if someone is suspended, well, then they shouldn't be, watch partying games or being really a part of the scene. Okay, let's move on to some other news then about a player that is seemingly in a bit of limbo right now, and that is Aspas, because Aspas' agent here tweeted out about Aspas. And here is what he said. It is important to clarify that some important details are not accurate. Yes, it says quotes here, but that's just Aspas. Yes, Aspas is exploring their options, as many players do. However, if he were to finally stay at Leviathan, he would be ready to play, and we have not communicated otherwise to the club. There are interested teams, and we are exploring and discussing regularly in coordination with Lev. Bleed was indeed one of the options, but it is no longer. The preference is ideally to move to Asia, but We are open to all regions and do not close the door to anything. Discussing with everyone. Be careful what you read in these leaks. Very interesting, right? So we get kind of confirmation that Aspas, wants to go to Asia, Pacific, or China. But it also seems like maybe there is a slight, backdoor possibility that Aspas actually stays with Lev. I would say that most likely, based on this, right, and this is Aspas' agent, I would say he's probably going to move to Asia. I would guess China is the most likely. There's some rumors about DRG being a team that wants to pick up Aspas, which again, you have to think they're an essential team, right? They need to do well. They need to try and get the champs. So if you're DRG and they do have some kind of bag to drop, that would make sense. I would guess if I had to put my money anywhere, I would say that Aspas probably going to China. And let's talk about our boy Leo Farrier as well, because this is always important when Leo speaks. And he spoke at the Tarek Ludwig event. So let's just go through, some of the crucial things that he said. Reiteration of the new classic skins for 2025 mentions it sells in the millions. Reiterates there's a new bundle at the beginning of next season, team capsules and champs bundle for 2025. Now this one I'm sure many of you will find interesting. Tarek mentioning the 2027 evaluation. Leo mentions for sure that some teams may have a better chance to get in than some currently in partnership right now. Changes in 2027 sound likely. Now I know that a lot of people think that Riot maybe made the wrong decision on some of the orgs. I would not be surprised personally, given the way it's gone, at least for now, that a team like G2, would probably be a decent option of getting in, that you might get some replacements, of some of the orgs and some of the regions. I don't think it'll be like, 3 teams from each region are getting replaced. I think you're probably more looking at like maybe 1, maybe 2 at a stretch. He says he likes the partnerships, mentions they can definitely make changes. And look, this is what we've seen thus far, right? Thus far, going through each year in VCT, we have seen them change things, right? We have seen them change. I mean, we've seen them basically make a decision based on community feedback alone, right? When the Guard weren't ascending, and they initially decided that they weren't going to ascend anyone, the community basically bullied them into then ascending G2. Now, this next point I find pretty interesting as well, which is, Leo mentions that if he were to do it again, with what they know now, they'd probably make it more open. Mentions the possibility of a tier 2 team could go to an international event. Now that I think is really interesting, and maybe there's some potential there for that to happen in the future. I don't know exactly how they would do that, but that certainly would be, quite interesting if they could make that work somehow. He mentions that the Champion Soul viewership peaked at around 9.1 million. China viewership accounted for 80% of it. I mean, that is unbelievable. Okay, moving on. Mimi asked about team skins for winning teams. Leo mentions it's a great idea, but development takes time to the point where those skins could come out a year later. Now, here's the thing for me. Very simple solution. All you need to do is take the champs winning player card, and like they do for the ones in battle passes, where, you have the gold version of it, just do that for that card. And then finally in this, Mimi asks if the leagues will be in the same cities, and Leo mentions that they aren't looking to change right now, but is open to the idea. Also open to the idea of road shows as well, which that would certainly be interesting as well if they did move the host cities. I think personally putting it in Berlin was a mistake. If I'm being honest with you, I get why they did it. It made sense because they had a headquarters there, but you have no German teams in the MEA League. So it just kind of feels a bit strange. And then finally, T1 announced their team for this next season, and it's Sylvan, Idsu, Buzz, Meteor, Stax, and Carpe. Now Carpe will be the sub, I think, but obviously there's some big names here. But you take Meteor from Gen G, you take Buzz from DRX, you kind of steal talent away from the other top Korean sides. Again, it feels like, this is a team that could really do some damage. And they should have the pieces. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, who plays Duelist, right? Like, I'm going to guess Buzz will play full-time Duelist, but Itsu obviously played a lot of Duelist as well. Be interesting to see what they do, but T1 should be pretty competitive. So that was just a quick news roundup of things that I missed whilst I was away. I'm now going to sleep for the next 24 hours straight to catch up with my sleep, because it's all downhill here in TMV land right now.